Hi, readers. We've been spending so much time thinking about our characters deeply and figuring out text evidence to support our ideas. What we're going to do today is bring that together in a writing form. So being able to write what we think about our characters using text evidence. You can see that you're going to need a notebook and you're going to need a pencil for this lesson. Let's get going. So we use text evidence about a character's actions, thoughts, and words to determine our character traits. It's like their personality. We know characters are complicated, which means they are more than one way, just like we are. We're more than one way, or we act differently in different situations. We've learned about that. So let's take that knowledge and be able to write about our characters. Just a reminder, as we model today, or as I model today, I want you to pay attention to how the character is complicated. How's the character more than one way, or how does the character act differently in different situations? So what I'm going to share with you is a story. It's actually a true story of Emmanuel Ofosu Yeboah. And I want us to think about what are some of Emmanuel's character traits. What is in him that is part of his personality? And remember, he is complicated. So I'm going to want you to write at least 2 character traits and support those traits with text evidence. If you are getting your notebook set up, you could use something that looks like this: character trait, and be ready for it. And then the evidence from our text that supports that. What makes you say that? And then another character trait, and then evidence to support that. So here I go. Emmanuel's Dream, the true story of Emmanuel Ofosu Yeboah. You be listening for character traits. Here we go. In Ghana, West Africa, a baby was born. 2 bright eyes blinked in the light. 2 healthy lungs let out a powerful cry. 2 tiny fists opened and closed, but only 1 strong leg fit. Unexpected. Most people thought he would be useless, or worse, a curse. His father left, never to return, but his mother had faith. Her name was Comfort, and she named her first child Emmanuel, meaning God is with us. As Emmanuel grew, Mama Comfort told him he could have anything, but he would have to get it for himself. He learned to crawl and hop, to fetch water and climb coconut trees. He even shined shoes to earn money. Most kids with disabilities couldn't go to school. Still, Emmanuel's mother carried him there, until one day she said, "You are too heavy." From then on, Emmanuel hopped to school and back, 2 miles each way on 1 leg by himself. Some of this might be evidence for the word that you're wanting to describe, Emmanuel. At first, nobody would play with him. So Emmanuel saved his money and bought something none of his classmates had, a brand new soccer ball. Of course, he would share it if he could play too. Lunging and spinning on crutches his grandmother had found for him, and kicking the ball with his good left foot, Emmanuel earned their respect. All right. His new friends sometimes used their lunch money to rent bikes. Would Emmanuel be able to join them? His friend Godwin pushed him fast so he could balance. Over and over again, Emmanuel fell hard. But finally, he rode. Remember, you're looking for evidence to determine a trait for our Emmanuel. When Emmanuel was 13, Mama Comfort got very sick. she could no longer sell vegetables at the market, and Emmanuel's sister and brother were too little to work. He would have to support them. Against his mother's wishes, Emmanuel snuck out and boarded a midnight train to the bustling city of Accra, 150 miles away, alone. He didn't know it then, but it would be 2 years before he saw his family again. Emmanuel arrived full of hope. There were so many people, but no one would hire him. Shopkeepers and restaurant owners told him to go out and beg like other disabled people did, but Emmanuel refused. Finally, a food stand owner offered him a job and a place to live. When Emmanuel wasn't serving drinks, he kept busy shining shoes. He earned money and sent it home. One morning, when Emmanuel went to buy shoe shining supplies, the shopkeeper thought he was there to beg and scolded him. Insulted, Emmanuel slammed his money down on the counter. The shopkeeper apologized, but Emmanuel would never forget. Lots of ways that we could describe Emmanuel, lots of text evidence that might lead us to some pretty precise words. When Mama Comfort grew sicker, Emmanuel went home to be with her. From her bed on Christmas Eve, she told her son, "Be respectful, take care of your family, don't ever beg, and don't give up." By the next morning, Emmanuel's beloved mother had died. He was heartbroken, but he knew her last words had been a gift. He would honor them by showing everyone that being disabled does not mean being unable. It was a big dream, but Emmanuel had a plan. Emmanuel had a sharp mind, a bold heart, and one strong leg. All he needed was a bike. At first, no one would help. They thought his plan to bicycle around Ghana was impossible. Then Emmanuel wrote to the Challenged Athletes Foundation all the way in San Diego, California. They sent him a bike, plus a helmet, shorts, socks, and gloves. Emmanuel started training for the long ride. He persuaded the king of his region to give him a royal blessing. He went door to door asking for additional support. Finally, he hired a taxi to follow him with drinking water, a camera, and his best friends. Then Emmanuel tied his right leg to the bike's frame, jammed his left foot into a flip-flop attached to the pedal, and rode. He had worked hard to get there. Emmanuel pedaled through the bustling cities of Accra. He pedaled through rainforests, over rolling hills, and across wide, muddy rivers. He pedaled past oudum forests and plantain farms and through the market city of Kumasi. He pedaled as trucks roared past on the narrow highways and wild animals stalked his thoughts. He pedaled through vast grasslands and into the ancient city of Tamale. He rode up, down, across, and around his country, proudly wearing the colors of its flag on a shirt printed with the words, "The Pozo," or disabled person. He was wearing a shirt as he rode that meant disabled person. So he was getting attention, or when people looked at him, they would be like, disabled. Along the way, Emmanuel talked to those with physical challenges and those without, to poor farm workers and wealthy landowners, to religious leaders, government officials, and reporters. He wanted everyone to see him and his disability. He wanted everyone to hear him and his message. Oops, sorry. You can see his shirt, the pozo. The farther Emmanuel rode, the more attention he got. Children cheered. Able-bodied adults ran or rode along with him. People with disabilities left their homes and came outside, some for the very first time. The young man, once thought of as cursed, was becoming a national hero. What an example. He completed his astounding journey, pedaling south to the sea and back up to Accra, nearly 400 miles in just 10 days. But Emmanuel's success goes even further than that. He proved that one leg is enough to do great things, and one person is enough to change the world. So you know the story of Emmanuel and his dream or his journey. I want you to pause right now if you need to, if you haven't had the chance to determine a character trait for Emmanuel and support that with evidence from the story. There's so many great words. Remember, you have some resources, some character traits lists, some words in your own head. And then, of course, come up with another character trait that Emmanuel is and text evidence from the story. Make sure your notebook is set up because we're going to use that going further. I'm going to continue. Here we go. Here's my thinking. I think Emmanuel is lots of things, but I chose 2 words I think are pretty precise based on the evidence from the book. One word that I believe describes Emmanuel is the word determined. And my evidence from the story is he refused to quit, even after many shopkeepers told him to beg instead of work. He didn't give up. So that's someone that's determined. And another word that I believe describes Emmanuel is courageous. And the evidence of that is he left his home all by himself to find work when his mom became ill, and he wanted to support his family. So determined and courageous, and my evidence to support it. Now, what I want you to do with your 2 character traits and the evidence is I want you to begin writing about Emmanuel. And really, you're answering the question, what kind of person is Emmanuel? Using these checkpoints, you should be able, when you're writing or as you're writing or when you're done writing, you should be able to check each of these. So I wrote about how the character is complicated. This means I told about how the character could have more than one trait. And you should be able to check this. I provide text evidence, details, or quotes from different parts of the text to support my thinking. Okay. So the next slide might help you get started with how this is going to look. I'll share mine. So again, the question, what kind of person is Emmanuel? In your notebook, you could write, Emmanuel is complicated, right? That's a great topic sentence. We know he's more than one way. And then he is, share your first character trait. I know this because, what's your text evidence? And then it continues to write like a paragraph almost. He is also, it's that second character trait. I know this because, and there's your text evidence. This is just a reminder of what you're shooting for. You should be able to write how it's complicated. And here's what it looks like when you're done writing. Here's the example. Emmanuel is complicated. He is determined. I know this because throughout the book, he is faced with obstacles and he works hard to overcome them. For example, When shopkeepers told him to go out and beg instead of hiring him, he refused. He is also courageous. I know this because many times in his life, Emmanuel had to do things that required courage. For example, when his mother became sick, he left his home all by himself to go and make money for his family. So I'm writing it in paragraph form, and I'm noticing that it almost follows a pattern. I tell how the character is complicated. I give a trait and then evidence, a trait and then evidence, and I definitely am able to check both of these, that my writing is meeting that expectation. So readers, we took information, we determined character traits, we supported it with text evidence, and we were able to write about our character. We'll continue this tomorrow with our Tiger Rising story and using some characters from Tiger Rising. But now, with that being said, let's get to our reading today. So in Tiger Rising, we will read chapters 25 and 26. I'll give you just a brief reminder that when we left our characters had told Willie Mae that there was a tiger, that they know about a tiger in a cage. So this is where we pick up our reading. Chapter 25. The three of them walked through the woods in silence. Get your movies going, get your thoughts going, get your questions going. Sistine and Rob chewed 8-ball gum, and Willie Mae smoked a cigarette, and nobody said a word. Lord God, said Willie Mae when they came up to the cage. She stared at the pacing animal. Ain't no reason to doubt the fierceness of God when he makes something like that, she said. Who was the fool that caged this tiger up? He belongs to Beauchamp, Rob told her. Beauchamp? Said Willie Mae with disgust. She shook her head. One person in the world that don't need to be owning no tiger, and that's Beauchamp. See? Said Sistine. It's just not right, is it? Just like you told Rob about your bird and how you let it go. A bird? Said Willie Mae. Now that's one thing. Tiger belonging to Beauchamp? Now that's another. Tell Rob that he should unlock the cage and let him go, Sistine demanded. I ain't, said Willie Mae. You got to ask yourself what's going to happen to this tiger after you let him go. How's he going to live? Rob was flooded with sad relief. Willie Mae wasn't going to make him do it. He wasn't going to lose the tiger. Panthers live in these woods, argued Sistine. They survive. Used to, said Willie Mae. Don't know more. Sistine put her hands on her hips. You're not saying what you believe, she accused. You're not talking like a prophetess. That's 'cause I ain't no prophetess, said Willie Mae. All I am is somebody speaking the truth. And the truth is, there ain't nothing you can do for this tiger except let it be. It's not right, said Sistine. Right ain't got nothing to do with it, muttered Willie Mae. Sometimes right just don't count. Can't wait until my father comes to get me, said Sistine. He knows what's right. He'll set this tiger free. Rob looked at Sistine. Your daddy ain't coming for you, he said softly, shaking his head, amazed at what he suddenly knew to be the truth. My father is coming to get me, Sistine said through her tight lips. Nah, said Rob sadly. He ain't. He's a liar, just like your mama said. You're the liar, said Sistine in a dark, cold voice. Her face was so white that it seemed to glow before him. "I hate you," she said to him. "Everybody at school hates you too, even the teachers. You are a sissy, and I hope I never, ever see you again." She turned and walked away, and Rob stood and considered her words. He felt them on his skin like shards of broken glass. He was afraid to move. He was afraid of how deep they might go inside him. "Oh, she don't mean it," said Willie Mae. "She don't mean none of what she say right now." Rob shrugged. He bent and scratched his legs as hard as he could. He scratched and scratched, digging his nails in deep, trying to get to the bottom of the itch that was always there. "Stop it," Willie Mae told him. Rob looked up at her. "Let me tell you something," she said. "I would love to see this tiger rise on up out of this cage. Yes, I would like to see him rise on up and attack Beauchamp. Serve him right for keeping a wild animal locked up, putting you in the middle of this, giving you keys to this cage. Come on." She grabbed hold of Rob's hand. "Let's get on up out of here." And as they walked back to the Kentucky Star, Rob thought about what Willie Mae had said about the tiger rising on up. It reminded him of what she had said about his sadness needing to rise up. And when he thought about the two things together, the tiger and his sadness, the truth circled over and above him and then came and landed lightly on his shoulder. And he knew what he had to do. Readers, you can stop and jot, or you can turn and talk. Think about this, stop and discuss. Knew what he had to do. All right, I'll continue. Chapter 26. He left Willie Mae at the motel and went down the highway. "Sistine!" he shouted as he ran. "Sistine!" he screamed, and miraculously he saw her orange dress with the pink polka dots, glowing on the horizon. Sistine Bailey. "Hey!" he shouted. "Sistine! I got something to tell you." "I'm not talking to you," she shouted back. But she stopped. She turned around. She put her hands, we know, on her hips. He ran faster. "I come to tell you about the tiger," he said when he caught up with her. "What about him?" "I'm fixin' to let him go," said Rob. Sistine squinted her eyes at him. "You won't do it," she said. Yes, I will," he told her. He reached into his pocket and he pulled out the keys and held them in front of her proudly, as if he had just conjured them up out of thin air, as if they had never existed before. "I'm going to do it," he said. "I'm going to do it for you." "Wait!" somebody screamed, and Rob turned and saw Beauchamp come speeding right toward them in his red Jeep. "Oh, no," whispered Rob. "Is it him?" whispered Sistine. Rob nodded. Beauchamp pulled over to the side of the road, spraying mud and water everywhere. "Huh, y'all getting some exercise?" he hollered. Rob shrugged. "Speak up!" roared Beauchamp. He got out of the Jeep and came toward them. Rob quickly pocketed the keys. His heart thumped once, loudly, as if it were cautioning him to keep quiet, and then it went back to beating normally. "Well, looky here," when he saw Sistine. "You out chasing girls, is that it? Man after my own heart. This your girlfriend?" Beauchamp pounded Rob on the back. "No, sir," said Rob. He looked at Sistine. She was staring so hard at Beauchamp that Rob was afraid the man might burst into flames. Think about it. Her hard, cold stare, This is the person who's keeping the tiger in the cage. Oh, she's mad. I got some more goods for you, Beauchamp said. I left him back at the motel with Ida Bell. Yes, sir, said Rob. What's your name, little thing? Beauchamp said, turning to Sistine. Rob's heart gave another warning thump. Lord only knew what Sistine was going to say to Beauchamp. But Sistine, as always, surprised him. She smiled sweetly at Beauchamp. Sissy, she said. Well, that's pretty, said Beauchamp. That's the kind of name worth running down the road after. He leaned over to Rob. Remember what we got going. You're keeping your manly secrets now, aren't you? Yes, sir, said Rob. Beauchamp winked. His toothpick wiggled. I got me some business in town, he said. He squeezed Rob's shoulders hard and then took his hand away. You and your girlfriend, you stay out of trouble now, you hear? Yes, sir, said Rob. Beauchamp swaggered back to the Jeep, and Rob and Sistine stood together and watched him get in and roar down the highway. He's afraid, said Sistine. He's afraid of the tiger. That's why he's making you feed him. Rob nodded. That was another truth he had known without really knowing it, the same as he had known that Sistine's father was not coming back. He must, he realized now, somewhere deep inside him, more things than he ever dreamed of. I'm sorry, he said. What I said about your daddy, I'm sorry. I don't want to talk about my father, said Sistine. Maybe he is coming to get you. He's not coming to get me. Sistine tossed her head, and I don't care. It doesn't matter. What matters is the tiger. Let's go. Let's go. Set him free. Readers, we're climbing that plot structure mountain. Rising action. All right, readers. Today, when you read independently, please just practice all of your strong reading skills. Getting a picture in your mind, asking questions, predicting, and really taking in all of your author's words. Have a great independent reading. Carry on.